Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to episode 8 of the Drum Corps Fans Guide to the World. I'm your host, David Vaughn. Today we are going to be talking about music on the march that happened yesterday in Dubuque, Iowa. We're going to be recapping some other scores, and we're going to talk about the power rankings, where all of the corps are currently sitting. And we have kind of a big and exciting piece of news at the end that is related to the drum corps world that we are excited about. At least those of us that are kind of history buffs in the drum corps world are excited about. First of all, I apologize for not doing a video here for a few days. It was kind of a quirky deal where there were several days where there were not any drum corps shows that were being broadcast on Flow Marching. And then on one of the days where there was a show, it was my daughter's first show of the season. And I just wanted to sit back and enjoy the show. And so I ended up just watching it. I didn't do any analysis on that show. And so I apologize for that one. But we are back today. And then there are 5 shows tonight. So we'll see how my analysis can go on those. I honestly, off the top of my head, don't know which ones are being broadcast, which ones are not. And this is the start of a really long weekend for me anyway, so I'm not sure exactly what kind of analysis I'm going to be able to provide. But we're just going to kick off with what we have right now. We'll control the things that we can control. We're just going to start right off with the music on the march. There were not any corps that were doing their first shows of the season, but there was a corps that I had not gotten to see up to this point. The first corps to perform were the Colt Cadets and their show Classical Innovations. They introduced a pretty sweet new look. They got new uniforms. They are actual uniforms, but they got away from their red and black. Their uniforms are kind of blue. It's like a dark blue fade to a baby blue, almost white on the bottom. The bottom of the uniform jacket. It looked really sharp. It was a pretty sweet look. They started their show. They had a nice big start. They had some intonation issues and something to keep in mind at this one. Remember, Colt Cadets are an extremely young corps. They're designed to be for older elementary through middle school age kids, just to introduce them to drum corps. So these are young kids anyway. It was their home show. This was in Dubuque, Iowa. So a lot of people that they know are sitting in the stands this time. And so a lot of them were overplaying. And it led to some intonation issues that they hadn't had up to this point. And so I don't look for those intonation issues to continue. I just noted that they happened last night. I don't think it's going to be a thing. Something that I do want to point out, in both of the shows that happened last night, the one that was broadcast, which was Music on the March, and the Drums Along the Rockies show in Cheyenne, Wyoming, had pretty substantial rain and lightning delays. And so that may have played a big part in some things as well. But I can only speak to what I saw, and the only one that I saw was the Music on the March in Dubuque. There were some intonation issues kind of toward the end of the opener after that big start. Very nice baritone solo in the second movement. More intonation issues. I'm chalking it up to bad weather, combined with the fact that they were amped up because it was their home show, combined with the fact that it's a young group. All of that combined, it was a perfect storm. It didn't go so well for them. On the tuning front, they were overplaying pretty much all night. That's nothing against them. It was just the nature of that particular performance last night. They overplayed. I don't look for that to continue because it hasn't happened up to this point. So if you're a Colt Cadets fan or a Colts family fan, don't stress over this. This is a one-off. This is a one-time thing. And now with the two main shows out of the way, Dubuque and Ankeny, I look for things to settle down now, back to kind of where they were before, as far as tonality, musicality, things like that. It's, they're going to be fine. The battery feature in the second movement didn't quite line up. I haven't really noticed it up to this point. I will pay more attention to this because I don't know if this is one that just hasn't ever lined up or if I just noticed it last night. So I'll pay more attention to that one moving forward. I'm just, because I'm not sure, because it wasn't far off. It just wasn't quite meshing, a lot of static in the snares and things like that. It just wasn't quite there. But there was a really, really nice mallet feature. Again, just throughout some pretty big intonation issues that haven't been there up to this point. And a lot of things that they can't control. They can't control the weather. They can't control the fact that they don't have any contras. Things they have no control over. They're doing the best that they can in the situation that they're in, and they're doing a fine job. And, I have nothing but respect for the Colts organization for continuing with Colt cadets, because so many corps have stepped away from the feeder corps program. And so the fact that the Colts are still doing it and still embracing it, I applaud them for that. And for that reason alone, I will always support Colt cadets. And I think they did a fine job last night. Like, what was, get that playing back under control, get the adrenaline out of the way. They're going to be just fine. They will be fine. The next corps to perform after them is one that I have not gotten to see up to this point. They have performed a few times now, is River City Rhythm, and their show entitled Falling. It was a cool show. I liked it. I really did like it. A very nice opening statement. It was reminiscent of the piece of Via Borghese. Kind of the just kind of rounded mellophones to baritones to trumpets, kind of going around. It was a very, very neat effect. It was really cool. And something that, quite frankly, surprises me that they would attempt, but they pulled it off beautifully. They did very, very well with it. They did a good job of playing within themselves, controlled, very nicely blended. There's about 60 of them. They've got good instrumentation. It's a lot easier for them to do, but they do it nicely. They do it very well. There's a fun little salsa feel in their second movement. I really like it. And a pretty killer battery feature in there as well. Snares just getting after it. Good stuff. Nice technical passages, especially in the snares. Great, great stuff. It's such a fun snare feature in there. If you have not had a chance to watch River City Rhythm Show, I know a lot of people don't really like to watch open class corps. This is worth giving a look. When you think of open class corps, you tend to think of the heavy hitters. You think of Gold. You think of Blue Devils B. You think of Spartans. These guys, they're not going to win open class. But as far as an entertaining show, this is one definitely worth watching. There's some interesting chording in their ballad, Falling in Love with You. That starts out with a brass quintet, but it works. There's some cool dissonance in there that never really resolves. And I like it. It grabs your attention because it's like, but it sounds really nice. And I like it. If there's such a thing as nice dissonance, this is it. And I do. I like it. The only serious critique that I had, like in their entire show, is in the ballads, the mellophones tended to overpower. That's nice. You want big mellophones, but you don't want them to overpower the main statement. And that tended to happen a couple times in the ballad. If they can rein that in some, they're really good. There's a slight miss in the rack. There's an accent note at the end of the power phrase in the ballad. Like there's a tam tam hit that was maybe a 16th off. It was noticeable just because of the tempo. But I mean, overall, the ballad was very nicely done. Their show ended on the ballad, so I don't feel like it's complete. I don't think we saw all of their show last night, but they're in pretty good shape. They're in good shape moving forward, and they're poised to start moving up there with some of these heavier hitters. And they've come a long way in the last 2 years. And so they are going to start making some noise in the open class world in short order. And when they do, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I was glad that I got to see them last night. They did very, very well, and it was a pleasure and a joy to get to watch them. The next quarter perform kicked off the world class, and it was Genesis and their show Symbiosis. Guys, they completely revamped their whole show, and I love it. I love it. They started out with kind of a Siri introduction. It was awesome. I loved it. It was great. Kind of this interactive thing back and forth. It was so fun. The French horn solo and Firebird nailed it. Nailed it. This is a fantastic build. The bass drums brought the heat. It was nice. Throughout the whole show, the bass drums were fantastic. It was great. And like this core that performed last night in no way resembles the core that I saw less than a week ago. In no way. They did have a couple of tuning issues in the bigger moments, but it's much better than the other night. They just got to be careful not to overblow. There was a lot of really good clarity in the brass, and there was no ambiguity whatsoever in their articulation. And these are things that are again improved from the other night. Good stuff. The screaming mellophones in the opener, fantastic rips, nice. This show, and I got about halfway through it, and I realized this show this year is Crown's concept from last year, Carolina Crown's interactive concept from last year, done right. This show is what Carolina Crown should have done last year as far as execution. The interactive, the way it works, people were laughing, people were enjoying it. It was an entertaining show. It was great. It was fantastic. I don't know if I missed it or if they added it. It was kind of an interesting remix on Firebird for their second movement. Mallets were going crazy on it. I loved it. It was great. The tone and the trombone solo to start the ballad is fantastic. Very well done. Very, very well done. There was some slight phasing in the big build, but it corrected quickly. I think this just kind of, as you become more and more familiar with it, your eyes wander for just a second and then you come back. You're good. There was a fantastic end to the ballad. It was beautiful. It really was great. It really was great. The Siri was sarcastic. Loved it. Loved it. Loved it. Once the color guard lines up, the closer is going to be pretty incredible. And the guard is not bad, but once it really starts hitting, once they really start hitting, the closure is going to be pretty fantastic. And again, they just got to be careful not to overblow the last note. But the ending of the show was fantastic. Completely different feel to the show than a week ago. I I really enjoyed it. I liked what I saw, you know, last week or early part of this week. I enjoyed last night. And now I can't wait to see them moving forward. Because if they're making those kind of changes now, when they go forward, they're going to have some tricks up their sleeve that are going to be a lot of fun to look for. Should be pretty exciting. Next core to go were the Crossmen. Their show Meetings at the Edge. Like I said last time, dig the opener, Long and Winding Road. In my mind, you can't go wrong with the Beatles. You just can't. And it leads well to the Philip Glass piece that comes after it. The snares didn't quite line up in the battery feature to start the second movement, but it's right there. It's almost there, and their chops are nice. Once that hits, it's going to score. Effective use of silence, and you know, those of you that have seen these shows know that I'm a huge fan of effective sudden silence. I tell my students, I tell my university students, silence is just as loud as volume. And they use silence very well. You've got the sudden silence building to the subito forte that just ya ba, and it works very, very well. The drastically varying styles of music actually work in this show. It works with the theme of the show. In some shows, it doesn't work for me. Like I can't quite follow how it all fits together. In this one, it does. It works for me. I'm able to see how it fits. And I think it's because of what the theme of the show is that the varying themes work so well. I think I had kind of caught it before, but it wasn't really registering. I dig the concept of the long and winding road interspersed throughout the show thematically and motivically. I think I knew that it was there, but I noticed it last night. Like it caught my attention. It's in every piece that they do. And I like it. And I'm a big fan of reprisals. And, especially motivic reprisals. I don't want to hear a whole song again. Give me a note, or not a note, but give me a bar. Give me a slight, a phrase or even a phrase segment. And that's what they do very effectively in this show. The bass drums just seem to go nonstop the entire show. Like they start like a wind up toy. They just keep on going. I really enjoy the continuity of the show, even through the seemingly unrelated themes. It's like there's no dead moments in their show. Like there's no time where you lose interest in what they're doing. And that to me is huge and something that's not lost on me. I like that. Man, the Mallets, the way they start the closer, it's like, go on, Mallets, come on. They blew it out of the water last night. And I've heard it before, but last night was the best that they've done that. It was terrific. It was great. And an authoritative and emphatic end to the show. It was great. I loved it. We're to the point now where the cores are starting to put ornaments on the show to make it start to look more finals ready. San Antonio is I think a week from today. So you're going to start seeing more and more of this. These shows are going to start really resembling what you're going to start seeing in Indianapolis. Because now, starting about now, the scores matter. Because at San Antonio, that first ranking comes out, the official DCI ranking comes out. And once that DCI ranking comes out, it's hard to shake that. So you're going to start seeing more and more additions, more and more appendages coming onto these shows, more and more reworks in the case of Genesis, just a complete rebrand of the show. And so this week for me is the single most exciting week in drum corps because this is where shows metamorphosize. You never know from day to day what you're going to see. Now, finals week, you may not know what the results are going to be, but as far as what you're going to see on the field, this is the week to watch because you don't know from day to day. And I love it. Next corps performed with the Madison Scouts in their show, The Sound Garden. Nice trumpet solo to kick it off. Good stuff. Always. Madison Scouts always has a great trumpet soloist. I've never noticed it before until last night. The battery looked super jerky when they were marching. Like, really stiff. Like, y'all are going to think I'm a Star Wars nut because I keep making Star Wars references on here. I'm really not, but the references seem to fit. It's like C-3PO walking. It's like, if it's, I don't know, like that, it's very robotic. It didn't look smooth at all. I'm hoping it was the product of a wet field and trying to maintain balance because it looked odd. And so I'm hoping it was the product of a slick field. And there was something that happened later that I'll address that kind of makes me lean that way. Every now and then, that old school Madison Scouts brass sound shines through, and it just makes this old man smile. Every now and then it pops up, and you're like, yes, this is why I fell in love with drum corps in the first place. Madison Scouts are the reason that I got into drum corps. They are. And it saddens me how far they've fallen. But every now and then, that old glimpse shines through. And it makes me hopeful that it'll come back at some point. I think I mentioned it before on here. I really dig the electronic crescendos leading into the individual brass hits. I think it's super cool. You get this like jump, jump, and this happens several times, and I dig it a lot. And I don't know why. I don't know why I do. I just do because I'm not the biggest fan of synthesization on the field. I'm not, but for whatever reason, I really like that. So for whatever that point is worth, it's cool. I like it. There's just a little bit of ambiguity in the technical passages in the second movements, but the signs of it hitting are there. So, and this is what I'm talking about every now and then you'll get a glimpse of what it could be. So It's there. They're on the cusp of breaking through. I just hope they get to that breakthrough in time because unfortunately for them, everyone else is also on the cusp of a breakthrough. So if they can break through before everyone else does, they might be able to challenge for a final spot. You know, there was, and this is what I was referencing earlier. Their big giant ball prop that they kind of roll around, they were having issues with it sliding last night, which is kind of why I was saying that I feel like with the percussion, it was more of a balance issue than an awkwardness issue. Because, those drums throw you off center. I feel like they were doing what they had to do to avoid falling. And it may look awkward, but I would rather look awkward and stay upright than look smooth sliding across the field. So I'm gonna say that's what it was. The whole core seemed to sound subdued, and I'm feeling like maybe it was heavy air from humidity affecting tone and carry because this is not something that I've caught from them up to this point. So I'm guessing it was just heavy air and humidity. I do dig, and I know I've said this before, I do dig the trombone and bass trombone line under the running mellophones. It's such a cool thing. It's a cool line. Great part writing on that, by the way, because it's a nice repeated passage that is a great standalone passage, and then you put a melody line on top of it, and it works. It works. Excellent part writing there by the Scout staff. So unlike other spots in the show where the screamer trumpet didn't seem to fit, its use is effective in the Latin sounding piece in the fourth movement. Like there are parts where they put the screamer trumpet in it, and I've said this before as well, where they put the screamer trumpet in there, and it just sounds like they're doing it just to have a screamer. Now, in the Latin piece, it's effective, and it feels like it fits. So, you win some, you lose some. You know, even the chords that I really, really, really have been very high on have elements that I don't really care for. This is one for Madison Scouts. I just think that the screamer is screaming too much. But in this moment, it fits very, very well. And I really do dig the fall off the chord in the Latin movement. The closer, I love in all of its elements. The music, the guard, the writing, it's a fantastic ending. They've got that down. I still don't see how all the music fits together, but I'm putting that aside now and just enjoying the music because it is good music. And it's the Madison Scouts. Like I said, I have a sentimental spot for the Madison Scouts. The next chord performed were the Blue Stars in their show in Absentia. They have a nicely tweaked introduction leading into the euphonium solo. And this is where what I mentioned earlier, I love this part of the season where new stuff starts getting added. And it changes up the shows. They're definitely starting to round into form from a tonality standpoint. It's a much richer sound. They sound great. I noted they only had 2 tenor players last night. I hope it was nothing too serious. Hope it's either just an illness and they set them out, or a very slight injury and they'll be back at it in their next show. I'll keep an eye on that because you could barely hear them. And so that could be an issue if they're down 2 or 3 tenors for the rest of the season. The Contras missed their spot at the hold in the second movement. If you miss it, you miss it. Just stand there. And this is kind of marching fundamentals 101. If you miss your spot, you miss your spot. Hold that missed spot. Don't miss your spot and then while everyone's standing still, move to it because now you've drawn attention to it. You're already at an elite level where the difference between chords is thousandths of a point. Something like that can cost you a whole point. Miss your spot. Great flag work at the end of the second movement. The bunch formation that I was telling you about the other day that was almost disastrous. Nailed it. They nailed it, and it looked really cool. And I knew then I was like, okay, if they hit that, it's going to be really cool. They hit it. It looked fantastic. It looked great. I get it. There's great power in the ballad, and the color guard flourish is so close to hitting, and that's a major moment in the show, and it works. And so, like, it's that close to that whole major piece being locked into place. And that's the cool thing. It's like when major chunks start locking in, you're well on your way. The technical trumpet passage should start the fourth movement. They hit it, and it was great. The snare line behind the cymbal and tom rack was having their own little dance party. It was kind of fun. Like I was watching them last night. They were just they were having at it. It looked like they were about ready to crack open a cold one and just they were having so much fun back there. They added a tag to their show. Like they're the first one that I've seen that's added a tag. So that was awesome. That was awesome. And there was terrible camera work during it, which led to missing most of the drill. I was so aggravated because they added this tag and the camera was focused on a prop. And so you're hearing the music and it sounds great, but we're not seeing anything. And I was livid. So I know that they added a tag and I know it sounds good. They're going to start creeping up toward the top six, I think. They're starting to get there. Their problem is I think they may have added their tag too soon. You don't generally start adding tags until a couple weeks before finals. If that. Some don't even add them until finals week or even after like prelims. Maybe before prelims if you're not sure that you're going to make it into semis or finals, you add it early, but like adding one this early, I don't know. Now, again, the music was great. I loved it. But a core that good, they didn't need to add it yet, unless they just wanted to spice it up. Yeah, I don't know. The next core to perform were Phantom Regiment and their show entitled Exogenesis. Just raw, guttural, almost coming out of the trombone solo. It's just you know. Um, their opener was not well received by the crowd, and that is interesting to note. And that's something that I'll watch moving forward because I thought I had noticed it before. So I'm going to keep an eye on this now. If this becomes a trend, I don't know, maybe the rebrand isn't working as well with the fans as I had thought. But yeah, the opener wasn't well received last night. And Dubuque is in Rockford's backyard. It was less than an hour away. So certainly there would have been a ton of Phantom fans there. Their drill last night was immaculate. It was like I was watching like a pieware drill. It was immaculate, their drill. I haven't seen drill that well executed in a performance maybe since Frameworks. It was unbelievably good. And I'm not talking about design, I'm talking about the execution of it. It was unbelievable. Like I watched it go, it was perfect. Like I haven't seen drill execution that good in 20 years. It was great. It's still weird to me. It's still weird to me to see Phantom Regiment with a Mojo section. It's fun, but it's just weird. And I'm still trying to adjust to the whole. It doesn't look like Phantom, but it's Phantom. I'm still trying to get used to that. The battery break to end the second movement is it's just cool. If the snares were off a little bit, but when it does hit, it's just going to be fantastic. The trumpet solo in the Rachmaninoff has been inconsistent all season long, and it was again last night. And that's something they're going to have to fix. Inconsistent airstream, inconsistent intonation, very much not what you would think of with Phantom Regiment. And this has been a problem. So I don't know what they're going to do, but they got to fix it. And they've got a week to fix it. There's a great build to the big part, heavy diminuendo, right back to the crescendo. That's been Phantom's bread and butter for 50 years. There was a much warmer response to the ballad, which tells me the fans miss traditional Phantom. And I get why they're doing what they're doing. I understand it. But if the fans don't like it, then what are we doing? And that's harsh for me to say about my core. That's harsh. But why do you do what you do, Phantom? Are you trying to placate judges, or are you trying to put on a show? And I guess that's what it comes down to. Where's the priority? It's interesting. Oh, I skipped ahead. The technical passage in the fourth movement, beautiful, 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 beautiful. It was fantastic. They changed the last set. They had been taking a knee up to this point, and they didn't last night. I wonder if too many people were thinking it was going to lead to the leg out. And so they just opted to take it out. I don't know. We'll keep an eye on it. Another thing is that they're white pants and it was a wet field. So that also could have been in play. But it's a turf field. It wouldn't have gotten dirty. We'll see. We'll see moving forward what happens. The last quarter performer for the evening were the Colts in their show Where the Heart Is. Battery was locked in from the start. There's an interesting use of an entire section of muted trumpets. And in this era of where amplification is more common, I'm surprised that we don't see more experimentation with timbre like that. It worked, you know. Holy clean basses, Batman. The end of the second movement, the bass drums, holy smokes, it was unbelievable. Color guard in the ballad, they've added, I think, 6-foot flags, and they look really good. And once they get that timing down, because it is very different spinning very large flags, once they get that timing down, it's going to be a huge visual grab for the ballad. Hey, it's great. The chorus playing extremely well for the home crowd. They put on a show for their home crowd. It was great. The Colts changed up their drill at the end of the show, and they ended with an exclamation point. It was well done. And at this point, it's hard for me to see them not making finals for a second straight year. I think that they are firmly in the top 12 right now, and that makes me happy. They belong there, I think. So my results for Music on the March, I had in open class, I had River City Rhythm winning all of the captions, outstanding brass, percussion, guard, and general effect. Then I had Colt Cadets in second and River City Rhythm in first. In world class, and I think this is the first time that this has happened all year, I actually had a different corps winning every caption. I had Phantom winning outstanding brass, I had Crossman winning outstanding percussion, had Blue Stars winning outstanding guard, and I had Colts winning outstanding general effect. Sixth place, I had Genesis. Fifth place, I had Scouts. Fourth place, I had Crossman. Third place, I had Colts. Second place, I had Blue Stars. And first place, I had Phantom Regiment. Then the official scores in open class, second place were Colt Cadets with a score of 58.65, so their highest score of the season. Actually, it was high scores across the board. First place in open class was River City Rhythm with a score of 62.80. In world class, sixth place were Genesis with a score of 70.80, so they cracked 70 for the first time this season. Madison Scouts were fifth place with a score of 74.95. Fourth place were Crossman with a score of 75.4, and then a massive gap of 4 points. And then the Colts were in third place with a score of 79.15. Second place were the Blue Stars with a score of 80.85. And Phantom Regiment was in first with a score of 83.25. And I'll tell you what, Phantom Regiment is sneaking into a place that I don't think anyone saw them going this year. And we're going to talk about that here in just a moment as well. The other show that happened last night were the Drums Along the Rockies in Cheyenne. As you know, there are two Drums Along the Rockies. One is in Cheyenne and one is in Fort Collins. Cheyenne happened last night. Fort Collins happens tonight. In open class, there was one corps, and it was the battalion. And they came in first, obviously, with a score of 61.90. And then in world class, fourth place were Seattle Cascades with a score of 64.85. Third place were the Academy with a score of 74 even. Second place were Pacific Crest with a score of 76.90. And then first place were Troopers with a score of 79.10. And actually, I forgot, there were actually three shows last night. There was an open class show in Riverside, California called the Riverside Open. And that one in open class, sixth place were Blue Devil C with a score of 56.95. So their scores are starting to creep up as well. Fifth place were Vessel with a score of 62.40. Fourth place were Impulse with a score of 63.20. Third place were Golden Empire with a score of 66.75. Second place were Gold with a score of 70.80. And first place were Blue Devils B with a score of 72.75. So that's the results from last night. I do want to look really quickly at where the power rankings are sitting right now. And I've got these on my phone, so if you'll excuse me, I'm just going to kind of look at these. Right now, sitting in first place are the Blue Devils. And again, I'm ranking my power rankings on the average of their last three scores. Blue Devils own the season high score right now with a score of 87.35 in their last show. Blue Devils are in first place in the power rankings with an average score on their last three of 86.1. Second are the Boston Crusaders with a power score of 83.667. Third are the Bluecoats with a power score of 82.95. And then hot on their heels, and this is not, I think, what anyone expected. Fourth, with an average score of 82.283 is Phantom Regiment. And they are putting some distance between themselves and Carolina Crown now, who are fifth with an average of 81.65. And then another surprise, Mandarins are sitting sixth with an average of 80.7. Then you have the Blue Stars in seventh with an average of 79.733. Eighth are the Cadets, which I also don't think anyone saw happening, with an average of 79.35. And then tied for ninth, you have the Troopers and the Colts with average scores of 77.833. And then in 11th, you have the Cavaliers with 77.8. And I thought for sure the Cavaliers would challenge for the top six, but they're just getting smoked right now. They're a full 10 points behind Blue Devils, and an average of 3 points a night behind Mandarins, who are sixth. And then 12th, and I guarantee you nobody saw this coming, Pacific Crest with an average of 75.6. Nobody saw that coming. And then after Pacific Crest, then you have Crossman, Madison Scouts, Blue Knights Academy, Spirit of Atlanta. And then you have the top-ranked open class scorer, Blue Devils B, at 18th. But I don't think, and I may be mistaken on this, I don't think Blue Devils B are going to Indianapolis this year. And so that's kind of an open spot right there. And then after that, you have Music City and Genesis. And then you have a triumvirate of open class scores. You have Gold, Spartans, and Golden Empire. And then you have Seattle Cascades sitting at 24th. And Impulse at 25th. And so that's the cutoff for semifinals. Right now would be Impulse. And then after that, you have Southwind, River City Rhythm, Vessel, the Battalion, Colt Cadets, Heatwave, Blue Devils C, and 7th Regiment, rounding it out. Now, Jersey Surf, Columbians, Guardians, Les Stentors, and Raiders are still to go. None of them have competed yet. But I don't know that any of them are going to challenge for a semifinal spot. So I feel like right now, the top 25 are set. It could get pretty interesting. Yeah, it could get pretty interesting for that 25th spot because you have Impulse, Southwind, River City Rhythm, and Vessel all separated by less than a point in their last performance. And so now that could get really interesting. And then I guess if you stretch it out to a point and a half, battalion. And so it could get interesting for that last spot. Now, I do expect Jersey Surf to contend against one of those corps. So the spot for semifinals, that last spot, could be a really fun race. And if Blue Devils B are not going to Indianapolis, that alleviates some stress because then that opens up another spot. We'll see how it goes. But that's where we sit right now in the power rankings. The major news that was announced this morning by Drum Corps International after, what is it? Gosh, a 30-year hiatus. The Skyriders, Drum and Bugle Corps out of Hutchinson, Kansas, are coming back. And for old heads like me, that's exciting. For those of you that may be newer to the activity, look up some of their stuff. They were pretty good. And they're a sentimental favorite for a lot of people. And so the Skyriders coming back, that's big. And the Blue Devils are kind of helping to promote them. And so that's huge. And so I read that this morning and I kind of had my freak out, geek out moment. It was great. But that's it. That's it for the episode. I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in for the episode, for putting up with me for this long. If you don't mind, I want to invite all of you to take a moment to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button, like the channel, like the video. If you like the content, comment. Let me know. If you don't like the comment, let me know. I do try to respond to every comment that I get. And I do enjoy doing this, and I enjoy knowing that you guys are watching this. And so, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to do this. Once again, I'm David Vaughn, and I just want to remind you that no amount of success can compensate for failure in the home. Make sure that you let your family know each and every day just how much you love them. And just remember, this is a Drum Corps fan's guide to the world. We're just living in it. Until next time, take care and God bless.